You've heard a lot over the past few days about the security of our electronic voting machines.
No more drilling on federal lands, period.
Several days ago, Dominion came under heavy fire
on the central question of whether or not the Trump campaign helped Russia.
If you have a good credit score, Joe is going to charge you more for your mortgage.
Joe Biden is a decent guy.
We all know politicians and talking heads in the media lie. Everyone has an agenda. With all the misinformation and fake news out there, how can we possibly discern the truth? Famous thinkers like Socrates and Plato gave us the information that gives us a clear and understandable way to think about and analyze information given to us. I'm going to share that with you. In other words, I'm going to give you the knowledge and skills to cut through the BS. What's crackin', y'all? And welcome to the Logical Breakdown, where I teach you the soft skills to avoid being misled and manipulated by either political party, any source of news, or anyone for that matter, including ourselves. In this video, I'll go through the goals and subject matter of this channel, give you a very general understanding of what critical thinking is, and yes, of course, tell you how to stop being manipulated by talking heads, which I will do right now. All you have to do is think critically. I know, major letdown, but what does that even mean? You actually have to work to improve yourself. Or you could just have me do the work. In this day and age, with endless obligations, there's no time to focus on ourselves. That's why I'm going to make this as easy as possible for you. This channel will focus on teaching these skills in small, digestible, relatable chunks. Over time, you'll learn why people make dishonest assertions or argue unfaithfully, or inadvertently make invalid arguments or assertions, as well as why these arguments or assertions are invalid. So wait, critical thinking is a skill, an entire school of thought, and not just thinking critically? Well, it is, but that critical part gives it more structure. Critical thinking as a school of thought simply gives us the tools to evaluate information more easily. Here are a couple of definitions I found online. Let's start with Wikipedia, world's greatest source. We'll get to what reliable source materials are in a future video, but for now, I want to focus on what critical thinking is as a whole. Wikipedia says, it's kinda long, but pause the video if you need to. Critical thinking is the analysis of available facts, evidence, observations, and arguments to form a judgment by the application of rational, skeptical, and unbiased analyses and evaluation of factual evidence. Critical thinking is self-directed, self-disciplined, self-monitored, and self-corrective thinking, and accordingly, a critical thinker is one who practices the skills of critical thinking, or has been schooled in its disciplines. Richard W. Paul has suggested that the mind of a critical thinker engages both the intellectual abilities and personal traits necessary for critical thinking. Critical thinking presupposes assent to rigorous standards of excellence and mindful command of their use. It entails effective communication and problem-solving abilities, as well as a commitment to overcome native egocentrism and sociocentrism. Wow, that's a mouthful. This seems to basically say, do your own research. This stuff seems hard to define. What else can I look at to get a clearer picture? The foundation for critical thinking has this little quote in italics, but doesn't credit the speaker, so I have no idea where it came from. It must have slipped someone's mind. Which, given that I think this is a credible source, shows that even the best of intentions can still omit information or even unintentionally misinform. Here's the quote. Critical thinking, the awakening of the intellect to the study of itself. The site goes on to say, critical thinking is a rich concept that has been developing throughout the past 2,500 years. The term critical thinking has its roots in the mid-late 20th century. Below, we offer overlapping definitions, which together form a substantive and transdisciplinary conception of critical thinking. Critical thinking as defined by the National Council for Excellence in Critical Thinking, 1987. A statement by Michael Scriven and Richard Paul presented at the 8th Annual International Conference on Critical Thinking and Education Reform, summer 1987. Critical thinking is the intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and/or evaluating information gathered from or generated by observation, experience, reflection, reasoning, or communication as a guide to belief and action. In its exemplary form, it is based on universal intellectual values that transcend subject matter divisions, clarity, accuracy, precision, consistency, relevance, sound evidence, good reasons, depth, breadth, and fairness. It entails the exact... Holy buckets, this is getting ridiculous. And I haven't even gotten to their definition yet. What? You're probably asking? I know. This site is terrible. Apparently, they're good at critical thinking, but not organizing the information intuitively. That sort of thing can skew a person's ability to understand the information correctly. But if you have these skills, you can navigate this unfortunate reality more effectively. Here's the page where they seem to more clearly define what they think critical thinking is. OMG! Dude, I'm just going to skip to the definition because we've already spent enough time on this. So it tells us the problem, why we need to think critically, I guess. Then it gives a definition which reads, critical thinking is that mode of thinking about any subject, content, or problem in which the thinker improves the quality of his or her thinking by skillfully analyzing, assessing, and reconstructing it. Critical thinking is self-directed, self-disciplined, self-monitored, and self-corrective thinking. It presupposes assent to rigorous standards of excellence and mindful command of their use. It entails effective communication and problem-solving abilities, as well as a commitment to overcome our native egocentrism and sociocentrism. And it goes on to give definitions other people have given it. I really suggest people check out this site and doing their own research on the topic. As I said, it is a bit difficult to navigate, but there is some phenomenal information here. Link in the description. So why is critical thinking so hard to define? Well, it covers a lot of ground, and nailing down a short definition that really gets to the essence of what's being defined is exceedingly difficult. I look at it as a way to see through the BS. All the BS the world tells us, all the BS we tell ourselves, and even all the unintentional and good faith BS. While researching for the channel, I came across a project that is trying very hard to teach these skills. The School of Thought International is a non-profit organization dedicated to promoting critical thinking, reason, logic, and understanding. They also provide a lot of free resources on the topic. And for that very reason, along with being a member of the poor-ish working class, I'll be relying heavily on the resources they provide. Links to all the sites I've mentioned, as well as affiliate links, are in the description. I'm done saying links in the description. They're all down there. And, of course, when I cover these topics in more depth, I will not be relying on the site as my sole resource. And no, they're not a sponsor. Unless, of course, you buy something through my link. I mean, this is my first video, after all. Let me know how you like it down in the comments. We do, however, share a mission. Mine is more geared towards seeing through the lies of politicians and the media, while theirs is to teach critical thinking. As I've said, I truly believe critical thinking is the answer to protecting yourself from all forms of manipulation. So what is this school of thought? Let's check it out. Well, at the top of their site is the main menu, and we have home, projects, articles, contact, share, downloads, and support. Of course, we're on the home page now, so let's give it a scroll. First thing we see is the purpose of the school of thought is to help us question all schools of thought. I'd say that's a fairly concise way to articulate the idea of critical thinking. What else? Give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach a child to think, and she'll grow up to enact legislation that saves our resources for future generations. Oh no, another woke corporation. Well, if that's what you think, I think you should know that all information is biased. It does not discount its value. This is also a non-profit with the goal of education, not a typical corporation. We just need the tools to recognize biases and weigh the validity of that information accordingly. I will get to my personal biases when I cover biases, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Suffice to say that I'm pretty far on the left when it comes to my political beliefs. But righties, don't worry. I will be criticizing members of both political parties and even criticizing my own biases and perspectives. Self-constructive criticism is key in being able to think for yourself. But I digress. Let's keep going. Okay, they have a Patreon. Please agree to the rules of the conversation. Now this is an interesting concept to help spread the idea of having civil discourse rather than spew garbage at each other. I encourage you to watch the video. I'll be going further into this concept and noble goal in a future video. Let's see, what else? Your fallacy.is. Let's check it out. Thou shalt not commit logical fallacies. If you hover over an icon, it gives you a different logical fallacy. You may be asking what a logical fallacy is. It's a good question. Let's see what it says. A logical fallacy is a flaw in reasoning. Logical fallacies are like tricks or illusions of thought, and they're often very sneakily used by politicians and the media to fool people. Don't be fooled! Let's see what else is on their main site. Yourbias.is. I wonder what they define a bias as. This is obviously set up exactly like the previous site. They define bias as cognitive biases make our judgments irrational. We have evolved to use shortcuts in our thinking, which are often useful, but a cognitive bias means there's a kind of misfiring going on, causing us to lose objectivity. Seems reasonable enough to me. Does it remind you of anyone? Yourself, maybe? Well, it should. We've all developed biases. As it says, it's a useful shortcut most of the time, but it can cloud your objectivity. Let's see what else is on the main site. Partners and advisors. Alright, it might be tempting to just scroll past this and think it's irrelevant, but this may be one of the most important things you can look at when it comes to knowing the biases of an organization. With that being said, for the sake of time, we're just going to scroll past this. Again, I'll get further in depth about this in a future video. TheThinkShop.org. Definitely their online store. Check it out on your own if you'd like, but as I said, I'll be using their resources. You can download digital copies for free or buy physical cards and posters and stuff from the site, or click my affiliate link if you'd like to support what I do. TheRulesOfConversation.org. We talked about this a little earlier when we passed the video. Nothing to see here. Logical breakdown is the only way to learn about this stuff. Okay, fine. We'll take a look. FreeLearningList.org. First up is YouTube. Here we have a bunch of channels with a little triangle to pull down a description of what the channel is. If we keep scrolling, we'll see podcasts, courses, effective thinking. Let's see what that means. So, it looks like it's a list of websites with critical thinking as their main subject, subreddits, general, even a place to learn languages, programming, books, music, and how-to tutorials. Dang, this is one heck of a resource. Let's see what else is on their main site. A TED Talk. Again, I encourage you all to watch it. And the site ends with this quote by Margaret Mead, which reads, "We need to teach kids how to think rather than what to think." And there we have it. Seems like these guys just want people to learn. They're a nonprofit and are basically giving away all their resources for free and pointing you to other resources that have nothing to do with them, along with a few that do. I know this sounded like an advertisement for this site, but it's more like an advertisement for critical thinking. I just think this project has done a great job at simplifying the information. As I've said, everyone is biased and has an agenda. It seems to me that the School of Thought's only agenda is simply to teach people how to think critically. But we'll scrutinize them along with many other sources when we get to biases and sources. For now, I'll just say I trust them as a resource. Another resource I'll be leaning heavily on is a book titled Manufacturing Consent: The Political Economy of the Mass Media by Edward S. Herman and Noam Chomsky, published in 1988. I'm sure based on that title you can guess why I would be using this as a resource. This is a famous nonfiction work and lays out how the media works and why it covers, frames, and ignores the things it does. In other words, it exposes the fake media. You may be wondering how a book published in 1988 could be relevant in 2023, but as they say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. News media has been successful at manipulating the masses for centuries, and many of the tactics have remained the same. I'll be covering some of the themes and topics in this book as we get further along with learning the basics of critical thinking. So, what have we learned? We've at least attempted to define critical thinking. We have defined logical fallacy and cognitive bias. Most of all, we've learned that seeing through BS requires us to learn about how we think. We will be doing much more learning to think in future videos. I will cover individual logical fallacies and biases in depth. I will cover how to know whether a source is valid, and I'll attempt to cover every aspect that one needs to know to not be fooled by the media, politicians, and even oneself. And I'll gear all of this knowledge towards political discourse. And of course we'll poke fun at all the people trying to sell us their worldviews. Thanks for watching, and share this with anyone who may need it. As soon as I make another video, I'll put it right there. See you next time. Have a good one.